all the reviews in the world aren't going to save me from figuring out how this whole thing works. So there's a few things I can do. Just give up on that. Go back to the cave. And I don't know. I don't know what the point of that room is. Could be to find the last movie theater thing. I don't know. We have a movie theater thing we can go look at. So we might just go do that now. And then we can go back to the vault. Keep trying to solve all those final puzzles, because we're getting close on a lot of them. Most of the movie theater experiences have been disappointing, but if it leads to another ending, and I'm that close to it, I'm going to be upset if I don't get it. But if it doesn't lead to another ending, then fuck it! Then fuck it! Yeah, let's go to the windmill and just see what this one is, and see what it says. I don't even know that the Red Room would lead to another Beehive movie theater thing. So, no use spending hours on it if it might give me nothing. Let's focus on what's not going to actively frustrate us and what we know is probably progress towards something satisfying. So we go to the windmill. We go to the... God damn you, game. We go to the windmill. Suddenly our boy's scared of bricks. Did I turn the windmill off? Sorry about that, guys. I'll fix that. Probably. I forget if that actually does that. Alright, let's go watch a movie and think about how, I opened this. It's interesting. I am prepared to find this one, to the shock of the audience, potentially pretentious. But let's reserve judgment till we actually watch it, eh? That is not the last one, although I don't know if these are in the order I discovered. I guess they're not, because that one's last. Professor Moriarty, The Secret of Psalm 46. So it's a Sherlock Holmes reference, but also a Bible. Expecting James Bond to walk in.
Have personally witnessed a total eclipse of the sun.
Listen to the song that...
To stand
is that the title of the song, or is it just something similar to that?
Is one of my humble goals in life. The closest I ever came was over 30 years ago. On February 26, 1979, a solar eclipse passed directly over the city of Portland. I bought my bus tickets and found a place to stay, but in the end, I couldn't get the time off work. Well, anyone who lives in Portland can tell you that the chances of catching the sun in February are pretty slim. And sure enough, the skies over the city that day were completely overcast. I wouldn't have seen a thing. That work I couldn't get out of was my first job out of college. A sales clerk at an old Radio Shack store in beautiful downtown Worcester, Massachusetts.
That shouldn't be how you pronounce that.
On my very first day behind
Wait,
the
in
counter,
Portland or in Massachusetts?
a delivery truck pulled up to the front of the store.
What?
They carried in a big carton upon which was printed
Did you have
the
to go all the
legend,
way to Portland to be in the
TRS-80.
area that would get the eclipse?
It was our
Usually it's a little
the
more
world's first mass-market microcomputer.
widespread across the country than
The
that.
TRS-80 Model 1 had
I
a
suppose it could
Z80
be on the edge of
processor
it, but I
clocked
don't
at
know.
1.7
That seems weird.
megahertz, 4,096 bytes of memory, and a 64-character black and white text display. The only storage was a cassette recorder. All this could be yours for the low, low price of $599.
Oh, is it going to slowly eclipse itself? Look,
The
there's a little,
store I was working
little
in
chopped off right
had
there.
seen better days. At one time, it had been near the center of a thriving commercial district. But like so many other New England cities, the advent of shopping malls had, by the early 70s, turned it into a ghost town. Worcester's solution to this problem
Oh,
was
boy.
decisive, to say the least. The city's elders apparently decided that if they couldn't beat them, they would join
This
them.
one's going to be like 15 minutes
So,
long.
several square blocks at the heart of the city were bulldozed into oblivion, destroying
Oh,
dozens of
boy.
family businesses,
Yeah, let's see what the
including the
big
site
old
of a
commentary is going to
pharmacy
be.
once operated by my great-grandfather.
That reminds me of how
In their place was
Lee's
erected a vast
grandparents from
three-level
Walking Dead
shopping
ran a...
complex
Not grandparents,
with
parents.
cinemas
And his
food
brother
court.
ran the
When the dust settled, only
pharmacy.
a few forlorn blocks.
That
of
was a
old
good...
Worcester
Man, Walking Dead was a good
remained
game, and
standing.
particularly episode 1
My
of
Radio
Walking
Shack
Dead
store
really was a
in one of those
strong,
blocks.
strong introduction
Then,
to a really good
to add
story.
insult to injury, Radio
Cover
Shack
a lot of
opened
ground.
a brand new location inside the shopping center, less than 500
I don't really
feet
care for this
from
guy's
my
narration.
store.
This feels like it's being
So
read by
now
a person
patrons have
whose
a choice
story it
between
is
a
not,
clean,
whereas all the other
well-lighted
movie theater
establishment
things
with uniformed
have
security
been,
and acres
at
of
the very
convenient
least,
parking,
like people
or a
delivering their
shadowy
own
hole in a
lessons and
city or
thoughts.
office building next
This
to an
feels
old
like a
movie
narrator
theater.
who was hired to read a story that someone else
Consequently,
read.
I had plenty of time to fool around with the new computer.
And it doesn't feel natural at all. It feels like
I taught myself
he's
basic
being
programming,
told to do his big
Then I
narration
learned
voice
Z80
and not
assembly.
just tell a story.
both, of course, so that I could write games. I also created
It's going to be really
self-running
ironic if
animated
this is
demos
Jonathan
ran all
Blow
night
telling
in
his own
store
story right
windows
now.
for the edification of the winos who peed in our doorway.
Isn't Jonathan Blow British, though?
Strangely enough, the few customers we
I don't know.
had
I
didn't
don't
seem
really
to
know
be
enough about
interested
the
in
man.
our new computer,
That was an
even
asshole.
after the 16K memory upgrade. In fact, most of the people who set off the buzzer on their way through the front door weren't there to buy anything at all. They were there to exploit a free promotion, which was the bane of Radio Shack employees for over 40 years. The Battery of the Month Club.
I didn't
The
know Radio
idea of
Shack
this
was around for
promotion
40
was
years.
simple. Customers got a little red card, upon which was printed a square for each month. 12 times a year, the lucky sales clerk got to punch out a square
Motherfucker.
and
This,
give
oh
the
my
customer
god.
one brand new AAA, AA, C, D, or 9-volt battery. Of course, customers weren't allowed to choose just any grade of battery. At the time of my employment, Radio Shack offered 3 different levels of battery excellence. First were the alkalines, powerful, long-lasting, and expensive.
I've worked with a
hanging
lot of
behind the
clients that are
counter
working
like
on like
prescription
solid oxide
medication
fuel cells and a lot of other
in
cool
gold
battery
embossed blister
technology to make
packs.
things more efficient.
These
to help
were most certainly
electric
not available
cars
through the battery
be
of the
more of a
month club.
viable solution to
Next
environmental
were the high-end
troubles.
lead batteries.
It's pretty cool.
Sturdy, dependable batteries.
It's more interesting than learning about
moderately priced,
alkaline
and
batteries from
prominently
Radio
displayed
Shack,
near
so
the
I'm
front
just
of the
going to
store.
probably keep talking about it
These
until
were
the
also not available
subtitles
through the
show
battery
me
of the
that I
month
should be
club.
interested in something happening
Finally,
right now.
at the bottom of the barrel were the standard lead
But
batteries.
yeah,
These were literally
cost
piled in
is a
barrels,
big
cunningly
problem
located
with batteries.
way at the back of the
Performance
store,
and
in a dark corner near the TV antennas.
specifically
Remember TV antennas?
lifespan.
Customers who
A lot
came
of
in
batteries
looking
used
for
in
their free battery
not
of the month
autonomous, although
had to walk
hopefully
the
those will
entire
start
length
converging
of
as
the
well
premises,
to electric power.
past the CD radios and
electric
stereo
cars,
headphones and remote-controlled racing cars.
The batteries don't last very long. A lot of
Nothing
times there's a
would
risk of them
stop.
actually catching fire once they're
the
at the
first
end of
day
their
of every
lifespan,
month,
which is
the
bad,
clock
understandably, very bad.
Those
So I have a lot of
customers
clients who are
came
working
in,
to
waving their little
make
red
batteries
I
safer
would
and
look
more
up from my
long-lasting,
programming
so
and
that
wave them
issue
to the
is
back
less
of
of
the
an
store.
is less of a problem.
It didn't
The
matter
other
that the
big
batteries were
issue
only
is
worth
that
29 cents. It didn't matter that most of them were
is,
already
you know,
half
it's not
dead.
as bad for the
They came,
environment
they grabbed.
mining for the materials necessary
And
to
as
make these
far as I
cars,
can remember,
but it is still we're still
not one of
using
them
materials
ever
that
paid
are
for a damn
a little
thing.
bit
I
rare.
was such a
So
crappy
I have a lot of
salesman.
clients who also
I
are
was
working
young
to
and foolish. I thought
redesign
amplification in
batteries
game
used in
design
electric
was
guitars
happening at
to
the
use
keyboard.
more prominent common materials
almost
at the
missed
same
the
rate
lesson
of efficiency
coming through the phone.
as the
Fortunately,
batteries that are
I
currently
wasn't
in
the
use.
only person
So
fooling around with games
really,
or
it's just really
micros.
legitimately
All over
encouraging
the
to
country,
know that there's
people
like
me were
I personally have
experimenting.
worked with dozens, so there must be
Scott
like
Adams
hundreds.
was coding what would soon become the world's first
Didn't Scott
commercial
Adams write
adventure game.
Dilbert, and didn't he turn to a racist, or is that a
Adventure
different
games?
Scott Adams? I
My
don't know.
future employer, Infocom, was being founded.
Just
along
really
with
encouraging
other
that there are
legendary
hundreds of
companies
researchers working
like
to make
online
electric
systems,
cars a
Sirius,
viable technology.
personal
Because
software,
as of right now, there are
and
limitations.
SSI.
I fully admit that.
Those were
But
exciting
knowing that,
times.
you know, we are not stuck with the gas
Teenagers
guzzler,
making fortunes.
and there is still a lot of
Games were cheap and easy to
active
build.
research going into
The slate
making
was clean.
cars, you know, carbon neutral. That's really cool.
But in 1979, the biggest news in
He's
gaming
done talking about batteries,
had
so
nothing
I'll be
to
done
do
talking about batteries.
with
Let's see what the
computers.
next big prong of this argument is going to be, and then
On
I'll
the morning
diverge
of the
from
autumn
there.
equinox, September 20th, a new
I feel like,
children's
yeah, this
picture
is definitely a
book
Jonathan Blow
appeared in the
story,
stores of Great
but he has
Britain.
hired someone,
This picture book
he's hired
was rather peculiar.
a cheesy narrator
It
to tell the
consisted
story
of
for
15
him.
meticulously detailed color paintings, illustrating a slight whimsical tale about a rabbit delivering a jewel to the moon. On the back jacket of the book was a color photograph of a real jewel, shaped like a running rabbit, 5 inches long, fashioned of 18-karat gold, suspended with ornaments.
There's a
and
book that
bells,
is styled like a
together with
kid's book
sun
called
and moon
Cicada
of blue
that I would
quartz.
highly recommend everyone
According
read.
to the blurb underneath,
You could read it in a
this
span of
very
about 3
jewel
minutes.
had
It's
been
very much in the
buried
style of a kid's book,
somewhere in
but it
England.
is a lot about
Clues
being
pointing to its
ground
location
down by
were
the
concealed
capitalist
in the
work
text
ethic,
and in the pictures of
and
the book.
how
The treasure
a
would
lot of
belong
companies
to
treat their
whoever
employees
found
like
it
being cogs in a
first.
machine. They don't really care about them at
The
all.
book was called
They treat them like
Masquerade.
second-class citizens.
It was created by an eccentric
and
little
it
man
has
with divergent
an
eyes
ending
and
that
a
makes me
talent for
cry every
mischief
single time.
named
And also,
Kit
if you just like
Williams.
cicadas and you like bugs, it's going to be a
Within
good read
days,
for you. It's really
the
cute.
first
The
printing
main
was
character is
sold
a
out,
cicada, but he
and
wears
the
like
empire that
a
never
business
sleeps
suit, and he
found
works at
itself
like
in the
a normal
grip
human
of a
company.
rabid fever.
It's like weirdly
Excited readers
cute
attacked
and
the
grotesque
paintings
at the
with
same
rulers,
time.
compasses, and protractors.
And I love it very dearly.
Magazine articles and
If this
TV
goes on for too long, I'm going to
specials
go
dissected the clues,
double check my
floated
copy and see who
theories,
wrote it,
and
just so
followed
everyone
with
knows
keen
exactly which
delight the reckless
book I'm talking
exploits of the fanatics. One obscure park, unfortunately known by the nickname Rabbit Hill, was so riddled with holes excavated by misguided treasure seekers.
This reminds me of that Gravity
the
Falls
authorities had
treasure
to
hunt that
erect
Alex Hirsch
signs
helped set up
assuring the
after
public
Gravity Falls
that
ended.
no
That was
gold
really,
rabbits
really
were to be
cool. Like a
found there.
nationwide group
Some
of people
hunters
working
ended
together
up
on really
seeking
tough
psychological
puzzles
counseling
to
for
find
their
stuff.
obsession.
Some of them,
The
maybe it was
craze
worldwide.
leapt
There was
over the
one that was in a
Atlantic Ocean
nunnery,
and invaded
and
America,
I don't remember if that was
France,
in America or
Italy,
not. I feel
and
like America
Germany.
doesn't have a ton of nunneries.
It sold over a million copies in a few months,
But
a record unrivaled by any
that was really,
children's
really
title
cool.
until
I
the
wish I had been
advent
able to be a part of
Harry
it, but
Potter.
like obviously there was a
Over
very limited amount
150,000
of
copies were sold
you know,
in foreign translations, including
locations
80,000
where the clues
copies
could
in
have been. So the
Japanese,
idea of it being anywhere
despite the
near
fact
me
that the
was
puzzle
highly
was
unlikely.
only solvable
But
in
just
English.
I don't know. It was really,
didn't matter
really,
that the
really
Masquerade
neat thing
jewel
seeing
was
the
only
fandom all
worth
get
a
to
few
have one last
$1,000.
hurrah going through something
Many
really, really
seekers
cool.
spent far more than that in their months of exploration.
This
and travel.
Charlie and the Chocolate
It
Factory
was the
bullshit
thrill of the
is not
chase. The possibility.
not thrilling me,
of
man.
being the one.
We are not even like a quarter of the way
Treasure
done with this
hunts,
thing.
secret messages, and hidden things seem to exert an irresistible
Are we
appeal.
approaching a thesis statement with
They're
that
fun to look
sentence?
for
Maybe.
and to talk about. And this fact of human psychology has been exploited in computer games since the earliest
They're
days.
fun to talk about. They're not fun
It
to
finds expression in
listen
the hidden
about
surprises we call
for
Easter
an
eggs.
hour at a time, Jonathan.
Atari's Stephen Wright is credited with coining this term in the first issue of Electronic Games magazine.
Is he going to talk
The
about?
first Easter egg in a commercial computer game.
Yep, I know this one.
appeared in
This
an
is
early
this is actually a
Atari
fun trivia
2600
fact. I like this
cartridge
one.
Called, simply enough, Adventure. By a sequence of unlikely movements and obscure manipulations, players could discover a secret room where the words "created by Warren Robinette" appeared in flashing letters. Over the decades, Easter eggs and their evil twin, cheat codes, have become an industry within
It's not an industry. That is a misuse of the word industry, I think.
Devoted to their carefully orchestrated discovery and dissemination.
That it is part of the industry
They're part
for
of our
sure.
toolkit,
I wouldn't
our
call it
basic
their own
vocabulary,
industry.
The language of computer game design.
Yeah, it's not just computer games.
Computer gamers may have been the first to refer to hidden surprises as Easter eggs.
Maybe he's going to give me the exact Easter egg I was about to talk about.
Painters, composers, and artists of every discipline have been hiding stuff.
I was going to talk about a fun, nerdy one, but he's definitely not going to go there.
The recent advent of VCRs and Laserdisc players with freeze-frame capability exposed decades of secret Disney erotica.
That better be a joke.
Thomas Kincaid.
It spells SFX. Yes, it's very funny that it looks like sex, but it spells SFX.
A number
God damn you.
His signature indicates how many N's are hidden in each painting.
That's fun. That seems like it would be fun.
Dali, Raphael, Poussin, and dozens of other painters.
Those are the 4 Ninja Turtles, right?
All kinds of stuff in their paintings. A favorite trick was hiding portraits of
Dali, actually, he's not going to talk about this because he's talking about the most boring things possible and bringing up interesting subjects.
El Greco loved dogs, but the Catholic Church
okay. Some of these facts are fairly interesting.
Paintings. So he hid them, usually within
That's
the
cute. I like that.
Of celestial clouds.
Dali likes to hide secret little images of Abraham Lincoln in his paintings. He was just fucking weird, and he fucking loved Abraham Lincoln. So you'll just see like random outlines that vaguely resemble a face wearing a top hat and a big, chin strap beard, because he fucking loved Lincoln so much. Dali was a weirdo, and I love him.
Mozart's opera, The Magic Flute, is filled with musical allusions to the rituals of the Freemasons, the ancient secret society of which he and his mentor Haydn were members.
I was waiting to see if you would pronounce Haydn correctly.
The most famous purveyor of Easter eggs is
he
that
did.
champion
I'll give him
of
that.
the late Baroque, the ultimate musical nerd, Johann Sebastian Bach. Bach was a student of gematria, the art of assigning numeric values to letters of the alphabet. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, etc.
I want to give him the benefit of the doubt
By
for his Bach
comparing,
story. We'll see what he has to say.
Or otherwise manipulating these numbers,
But I have another
secret
Easter egg
messages
story that's
can
fun.
be concealed. Bach took particular delight in the geometrical numbers 14 and 41. 14 is the sum of the initials of his last name. B equals 2, A equals 1, C equals 3, and H equals 8. 41 is the sum of his expanded initials, J.S. Bach. These two numbers show up over and over again in Bach's compositions. One of the better-known examples is his setting of the chorale Vor deinem Thron. The first line of the melody contains exactly 14 notes.
That's cool.
And the entire melody, from start to finish, contains 41. Another of Bach's favorite games was the puzzle canon. A canon is a melody that sounds good.
I wonder if we're
when you
listening to
play it
Bach
on
right
top
now.
of
That'd be a
itself,
fun little Easter
little
egg.
bit out of
Haha,
sync.
get it? We're talking about Easter eggs.
Berejaka and Row, Row, Row Your Boat are familiar examples of simple two-voice canons. But a canon can employ any number of voices. And you don't have to play each voice the same way either. You can change the octave, transpose the key, invert the pitch, play it backwards,
Oh,
or
that
any
reminds me of a good
combination.
Sondheim story.
Finding melodies that make good multi-voice canons is a fussy and difficult art, of which Bach
I like
was
music,
an
so I want to hear about the
undisputed
Bach
master.
stuff before I start talking over
Now,
him completely
in a puzzle
like
canon,
before.
the composer specifies the basic melody and the number of voices, but not the relationship of the voices. The student has to figure out the position and key of each voice, and whether to perform them inverted and or backwards. Bach wrote quite a number of puzzle canons. The most famous, BWV 1076, is part of a fascinating story.
I hope you tell
One
us
of
about
Bach's
it.
students
Oh, good.
was a fellow
I
by
didn't
the
think you
name
would.
of Lorenz Misler, founder of the Society of Musical Science. This elite, invitation-only institution devoted itself to the study of Pythagorean
Unrelated.
philosophy and the union of music and mathematics. Its distinguished membership reads like a who's who of German composers, including Handel, Telemann, and eventually Mozart.
Yeah, the famous German Mozart.
Applicants for
Yeah,
membership
nice.
in the society were
Yeah,
required
you'll also
to
be there.
submit an
Okay,
oil portrait of themselves,
yeah, so,
along with a
a
specimen
very good
of
Easter egg in
original music.
D&D, in some of the
With
original
nerdly
adventures. I think it
efficiency,
was Gary Gygax
Society
himself,
member
although
number
don't quote me on
14
that.
decided to
Um,
combine these admission requirements
In one of the
into a single
dungeons, the
work.
pillars are arranged in a very
He sat
strange
for a
way in,
portrait
like,
with
the
Elias
main
Haussmann, official artist of the
room
court of
where,
Dresden.
like, the bad guy is.
This portrait,
And it's,
which
you know, it's
now
only if you
hangs
turn
in
the map
gallery
upside down
of
that you
the
see
town
that the
hall
pillars
in
literally
Myst,
spell out
is
Gygax's
the
initials,
only
which is really, really fun.
indisputably
Again,
authentic
I'm pretty sure it was
image of
Gygax.
Bach
It might have been
in
someone else, like
existence.
another, like, one of the original big
The
designers for
Haussmann
D&D.
portrait shows Bach dressed in a
But,
formal coat
yeah.
with exactly
Hey, 14, yay, he got to the
buttons.
point, yay! So, that was
In his
fun.
hand is a sheet of music
Sondheim,
paper,
I love
upon
Sondheim to
which is
death,
written a
and I
puzzle
also
canon
hate him
for
so
6
much for this one
simultaneous
specific
voices.
thing.
In
In
1974,
Into the Woods,
a manuscript
there
was
is
discovered
what I
which
still
proved
consider
that this
Rapunzel's
canon
theme
was
because
the 13th in a
one of the most
series
famous songs from Into the
exactly
Woods is the
14 canons based on the ground theme
the
of
prince is doing
famous
agony,
Goldberg variations.
in which Rapunzel as
As if these musical
the prince sings
gymnastics
about
weren't
Rapunzel
enough,
singing
Bach liked to hide
which is also what she
messages in his
sings.
compositions
I
by
knew
assigning
Agony before I had
notes
watched the
to
entire
letters.
musical, so that's like my first
His
connection
initials,
to it. That's what I always think about
BACH,
first.
correspond to the pitch sequence
That's
B
fun. I've
flat,
thought about
A,
using notes to
C,
spell things out
and
before,
B
but all I could
natural
come up with
in
was
German
cab.
letter notation.
So if you write a song about a
This
taxi,
theme
you should
makes
use
its
the
most
note
memorable
CAB
appearance
over and over.
in the last bars
Um,
of his final composition, The Art of Fugue.
But yeah,
published
even
soon
after watching the
after his
musical, I
death
was like,
in
yeah, that
1750.
melody is associated with Rapunzel.
The word
Apparently,
fugue
no, it's supposed to be
comes
seen
from
as the
Latin
bean theme. It's
fuga,
about the magic
which means
beans.
flight, as in
Um,
running away.
but it's dun
So,
dun
the
dun
art of
dun
fugue
dun that
is
one.
the art of
Um,
flight, the art
and
of
so,
taking a theme and running with it.
That's everywhere.
wrote
There's funky
hundreds
stuff.
of
I'm not even
fugues,
thinking about the right
but
musical. I'm
none
realizing.
as sublime
I watched a
as
video
sequence
about
of
Sondheim's
14.
use of motifs,
In the
and that was
last
a big
and
one that was
most
talked about.
complicated fugue in the
What I'm
series,
remembering now, I'm
the
actually supposed to be
first
thinking of
and
Sweeney
second
Todd. I'm
sections
so
develop
distracted by
normally.
this guy talking about
This is followed
way
by
more
the
boring
BACH
musical
signature.
trivia.
And then
Um,
suddenly, without any warning or
I
structural
should just check in to see
justification,
if it sounds like
the
talking
fugue
about something
stops.
interesting.
dead in its tracks. One of the composer's 20 children, his son Carl Philipp Emanuel, claimed that Bach died moments after those last few notes were written.
I don't believe that.
This story is probably apocryphal.
Thanks.
The
What
Easter
a
eggs in
fascinating
Bach's
fake story
music
you've
are
told
a
me.
pleasant obscurity, known chiefly to professors and students of Baroque
So in
music.
Sweeney Todd, Sondheim used
But
the
in
Dies
March of
Irae theme
2002, when this lecture
a
was
lot
first
throughout it.
delivered,
And it's
those Easter eggs
dun
were the
dun
talk
dun
of the entire
dun
classical
is
music
the big
industry.
one.
Sitting near
Which
the
is
top
most
of the
notable
classical
for
music
like the
chart
big
that
opening
month
thing of
was a
"Swing
compact
your
disc on the
razor
ACM
wide,
label
Sweeney."
called
Da da da
Moron.
da da.
It was performed by the
that
Hilliard
happens
Choral
throughout,
Ensemble,
and a lot of
together
times
with a
it'll be
talented
in slow
but
motion, a lot of times
until
it'll be backwards. I'm like,
then
that's really
little-known
fun. And then the video I was watching was
Christoph
like,
Poppen.
Sondheim will
The
even
music on Moron
turn it
is
upside
based
down
on
to
geometrical
show like an
analysis
optimistic view,
of
because
Bach's
Dies Irae is usually
Partita
like this
in D
grim,
minor for solo
foreboding
violin.
music. So by
This
flipping it upside
analysis
down, he uses
by
that
German
for the
professor
happier, more
Helga
optimistic
Fromm
characters like
assigns
Anthony
numeric
and Joanna.
values to the duration
And
of
I
notes,
paused the video and
the
I'm like,
number of
okay,
bars,
that's
and
bullshit.
the
This guy's
German
reading
letter
into things.
notation of
There's
the
no way
partita.
Sondheim would turn the
In
fucking
doing
theme
so,
upside
she claims to
down
have discovered the
just to
complete text
communicate a
of
point.
several
And then, of
liturgical
course, I
ceremonies
start watching the
included
video
in
again,
the
and
notes.
it cuts to a clip of
The
Sondheim
CD
going,
presented these
yeah, and
technical
one fun
texts
thing you could do with this
superimposed
melody is you could turn it
over the
upside
original
down, like I've
music.
done here. And I'm like,
The
God
result
damn it,
was
Sondheim, you
strangely
clever son of a
melodic,
bitch, how dare you?
dark, haunting, and very, very popular.
Fucking genius. Sad to
Quite
lose
a
him.
few music critics attacked this disc.
How we doing on
They
time?
didn't
Less than
buy
halfway?
Professor Thone's analysis,
Less than halfway.
dismissing it as a combination of numerology and canny marketing. Their caution was not without basis. Numerology is a slippery slope down which many a fine mind
I don't know how many
has slid to
fine
its
minds
doom.
have slid into numerology.
Allow me
A
to
lot of
offer
minds
an
have.
amusing anecdote
Oh,
from my
God.
own experience.
It better be amusing, otherwise
Back
this
in
is
the
false
early 90s,
advertising,
Before
Jonathan.
the internet took off, one of the more popular online bulletin board systems was a service called Prodigy. I bought an account on Prodigy so I could join a fraternal interest group and gossip with fellow members around the country.
Of course, it was a frat
One
group.
day, a stranger appeared on our bulletin board. Right away, I knew we were in trouble. This fellow whose name was Gary, began spouting all kinds of apocalyptic nonsense about worldwide conspiracies, secret societies, and devil worship. At first, we tried to be polite. We questioned his sources, corrected his histories, logically refuted his claims, and tried to behave in a civilized manner. But instead of soothing him, our attention only made him worse. His conspiratorial warnings became urgent, approaching hysteria. He began to threaten people who disagreed with him. To coin a phrase, Gary went all
Did this game come out in
uppercase.
2016,
But his
2015?
most urgent warnings weren't about the gays, the Jews, the Rockefellers,
How is this?
or the
How is
Illuminati.
Jonathan Blow like?
According to Gary, the greatest
I
enemy of
ran into a
mankind
troll
was
once.
Santa Claus.
It was the craziest thing. You'll never
Gary
believe
claimed to possess
what
a secret
what a
numerical
troll
formula
is.
that proved beyond
Like,
a shadow of a doubt that Santa Claus
we
was
all
an
know trolls,
avatar
man.
of the
We're aware.
Antichrist. Intrigued, we pressed Gary to reveal his formula. In doing so, we walked right into his trap. We should have known.
This
he
guy
had
sounds like he's
book
doing
to
a
sell.
Ron Howard in Arrested
I
Development
fell for it.
impression.
I sent him the
Why
15
did you say?
bucks. Less than a week later, the book arrived. Above an ominous photograph of the Washington Monument was emblazoned the title, 666, The Final Warning. Inside this privately printed 494-page monster, Gary reveals
You
a
lost all
simple
his sympathy when you
geometriacal
sent him the
formula,
15 bucks,
which he
man.
claims was
This is
developed
not an
by the
amusing
ancient
story. I'm just,
Sumerians.
I
This
am
formula assigns
I
successive
am marveled by
products
your
of
own
6 to
stupidity
each letter of the alphabet.
for sending it.
A
You didn't
equals
fall into his
6,
trap if
B
he
equals
said,
12,
"I will
C
explain it
equals
if you
15,
send me $15."
Imagine my dismay.
That's not a
when
trap.
I applied this ancient
You just-
formula to the name Santa Claus and obtained the blasphemous sum
You
of
just
666,
agreed to the
the
transaction
biblical
that he
number
very
of
clearly
the
laid out
beast.
for you. He didn't
I
trick
went on
you.
Prodigy and reported to the stunned members of our interest group that Gary was right after all. There could be no doubt that according to the unimpeachable wisdom of ancient Samaria, Santa Claus was the Antichrist.
Ancient Samaria makes me think of House
I
of
then went on to
Ashes,
point
which I'd
out
rather be
several other
playing.
names which, when submitted to Gary's formula, also produced the sum 666. Names like St. James, New York, and New Mexico. Soon the bulletin board was filled with discoveries like computer, Boston tea, and most sinister of all, sing karaoke. Gary left us alone after that. I got my $15 worth.
You think so?
But Gary
really
is
think so?
hardly the first person to connect secret codes to the Bible. People have been looking for Easter eggs in the Bible for hundreds of years. The Hebrew mystical tradition of Kabbalah can be described as a geometriacal meditation on the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Old Testament. The advent of computers has made the application of numerology to the Bible fast and efficient. The latest spate of Bible searching was instigated by a book published in 1998 by
Give me 1
Michael
second.
Drosnin, a former Wall Street Journal reporter. His book, The Bible Code, applied a skip cipher in which every nth character in a text is combined to form a message. By applying his skip cipher to the Hebrew text of the Old Testament, Drosnin claimed to have discovered predictions of World War II, the Holocaust, Hiroshima, the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin and both Kennedys,
Bold
the
of you
moon
to
landing,
assume that only 2 of them will be
Watergate, the
assassinated by the
Oklahoma
end of
City bombing,
history.
the election of Bill Clinton, the death of Princess Di, and the comet that collided with Jupiter.
Sean Tan
He
is
also
the
found
author of
predictions
Cicada.
of a
Again,
giant
I would highly
earthquake in
recommend
LA,
everyone get that
a
book. It's
meteor
very good.
hitting the Earth, and nuclear Armageddon, all scheduled to occur before the end of the last decade. The Bible Code spent many weeks on the bestseller lists, spawning several sequels and dozens of imitators. The Bible has certainly attracted its share of crackpots, but for the real hardcore egg hunters, nothing can rival the ingenuity, the tenacious
Amphibia had a
scholarship,
joke
the
about
stubborn
LA
zeal of those
And like
who
a
seek the
citizen
answer
hearing,
to the
a citizen of
ultimate
LA
literary
feeling a
puzzle.
big shake and
A
going,
poisonous
it's the big
chemical
one,
that has
in
squandered
reference to the fact
fortunes,
that there's
destroyed careers,
a chance
and
that
driven healthy,
LA is like
intelligent
devastated by an
scholars to the
earthquake
brink
at
of
some point.
madness
That's
and
like,
beyond.
I don't know if it's
Who
fair to call it
wrote
tasteless,
Shakespeare?
but like,
The essays and books
it felt weird to be
devoted
like, yeah, this is a real thing
Shakespeare
people have to
authorship
worry
program
about.
are
And
sufficient
there was a
to
joke
fill
about
a
it in the
large
kids show. I don't know. It's weird.
Several such libraries actually exist. Not even a day-long tutorial, much less an hour lecture, can begin to do justice to this complex, bizarre, and dangerously tantalizing story.
But I have fashioned an
Nevertheless,
hour-long
for the
lecture to
unacquainted,
discuss it
I will attempt to
anyways.
summarize the issue in a few paragraphs.
You don't have to. You don't have to.
The undisputed facts of Shakespeare's life and career could be scribbled on the back of a
I've only
cocktail
heard about
glass.
this secondhand, but fun fact,
We know
the
for a fact
primary scholar
that a
who
man named
first
William
came up with the idea that
was
Shakespeare
born in
didn't actually write many of his works
1564 in or around the village of Stratford
was
upon
apparently full of
Avon.
bullshit and
We know
had
that he
very
had a
little
wife
evidence to
and
support
at least
himself.
3 children. We know he bought property.
We know
in
his wife's
Stratford,
name, but
was
that's not
involved in
important to you,
several
is it,
lawsuits
Jonathan?
with
I
his
suppose.
neighbors, and
I
died
suppose
there in
that part
1616,
wasn't
aged
of any interest to
52.
you.
We
In this
also know that
20-minute
during those
long
same years, a man with a last
sequence
name similar to Shakespeare
Could
worked
spare
as an
a half a
actor
second
on the London
to name
stage,
Shakespeare's name when saying all the
eventually
things we
becoming
definitively know about
co-owner
him.
of some of the theaters
His name was
there.
Anne Hathaway, by the
We
way.
also
Which,
know that
by the
about
way,
same
why does
time,
everyone
a
hate on
number of
Anne
most
Hathaway?
excellent poems and
I like
plays
her.
were
I
published
honestly
in
think she's a
London
really
under the
fun.
name
She seems like a decent
Shakespeare.
person, and she seems like she
We
is
do
a really
not
good
know
actress.
for
I
a
don't
fact
understand
that the
why everyone's
landowner
kind of
in
zeroed in on
Stratford
her
and the
as
actor in London with
like
a similar last name
an
were
easy
one
target
and
to
the
make
same
fun
man.
of.
We do not
There are so
know
many other
for a
people in
fact
Hollywood
that
to
either
go
man
after.
had anything
Why
to
is
do
everyone
with the
hating on Anne
poems and the
Hathaway?
plays. All we know is that those poems and plays have, in the 400 years since their composition, come to be regarded as a pinnacle of Western culture. The works attributed to Shakespeare appear to have been written by a man or woman who knew something about just about everything. They're filled with references to mythology and classic literature, games and sports, war and weapons of war, ships and sailing, the law and legal terminology, court etiquette, statesmanship, horticulture, music, astronomy, medicine, falconry, and, of course, theater. Therein lies the problem. How could a farmer's
Those
son
stupid
of
idiots
uncertain
didn't know
story
anything about
from a
things
mostly
back
illiterate
then.
country village, a man of practically no account at all, wield such encyclopedic learning, with so much eloquence and wit, so much wisdom?
How could
and
these
human
fucking
understanding?
peasants think
For
of
the
clever
first 150
things?
years, nobody questioned the traditional history of the bard.
How could someone
Then,
of such
in the
ill
late 18th
blood
century,
come up
Reverend
with such
James
high
Wilmot, a
class
distinguished scholar who lived just
ideals
a few
and
miles north of
stories?
Stratford, decided to write a biography of the famous playwright. Dr. Wilmot believed that a man as well educated as Shakespeare must have owned a fairly extensive library, despite the fact that not a single book or manuscript is mentioned.
It's not like London
in
ever
his
dealt
will.
with any big
Over the
fires
years,
that
he
might have destroyed
speculated,
someone's
some
collection of
those
books.
must have found their way into local collections. And so, the good Reverend Doctor scoured the British countryside, taking inventory of literally every bookshelf within 50 miles of Stratford. Not a single book from the library of William Shakespeare was discovered.
I don't know if every single
Neither were
person
there found
labeled.
any letters to, from,
being-
or about Shakespeare.
I know it was more
Furthermore,
common back
no
then,
references to the
but I don't think
folklore,
every single person
local
back then
sayings,
wrote in
or
their books, "This
distinctive
belongs to
dialect
me,
of the
William
Stratford
Shakespeare."
area could be found in any of Shakespeare's writings. After 4 years of painstaking research, Dr. Wilmot concluded, to his own dismay, that only one person contemporary with Shakespeare of Stratford had ever demonstrated the wide-ranging education and expressive talent needed to compose those poems
can't-
and plays. That man was the multilingual author, philosopher,
Education?
and statesman,
Fine. You
inventor
can't
of the
say only
scientific
one man
method,
had that amount of
chancellor
talent.
to the
You don't
courts
know
of
how much
Queen
talent
Elizabeth
everyone
and
had back
King
then.
James,
That's fucking bullshit to
Sir
say
Francis
only Bacon had that amount of talent.
Dr. Wilmot never dared to publish his theory, but before he died, he confided it to a friend, James Cowell, who, in 1805, repeated it to a meeting of the Ipswich Philosophical
How are we
Society.
doing on time, guys?
The members of the society were suitably outraged.
I feel like
The
we're...
scandalous matter was quickly
Well,
forgotten.
how many
Then,
segments?
in
1,
1857,
2, 3,
a
4,
lady from
5, 6,
Stratford,
7, 8, 9,
Stratford,
10,
Connecticut,
11?
published
I've
a
got
book
11.
called The
1, 2,
Philosophy
3,
of the
4,
Plays
5,
of
6, 7,
Shakespeare
8, 9, 10.
Unfolded.
Okay, we're a little over halfway
In
through,
this book,
folks.
Miss Delia Bacon, no relation to Francis, claimed that the works of Shakespeare were written by a secret cabal of British
What's
nobility,
the best Shakespeare
including Sir
play,
Walter
and
Raleigh
why is it
and Sir
Julius
Philip
Caesar?
Sidney, as well as Sir
God,
Francis
that play
Bacon.
fucks.
Delia Bacon's
So good.
book electrified
There's a
the
line
world
from
of letters.
Julius Caesar that I
Battle
want on
lines
my
were drawn
tombstone.
between the Orthodox Stratfordians and the heretical Baconians.
John
Literary
Cassius has a
societies
lead
and
in
scholarly
Hungry
journals
Look.
were formed to debate the evidence.
What is it?
Hundreds
He
of
thinks too much.
pamphlets,
Such men are
newspaper
dangerous.
articles, and essays were published defending each side and ridiculing the opposition with that self-aggrandizing viciousness peculiar to tenured academics. Armed with her explosive book, Delia Bacon journeyed to Stratford-upon-Avon and, unbelievably, obtained official permission to open Shakespeare's grave. However, when the moment came to actually lift the stone, Delia's self-doubt precipitated a catastrophic nervous breakdown. She later died penniless in a madhouse. Around 1888, things began to get a bit out of hand. U.S. Congressman
fucked up.
Ignatius Donnelly of Minnesota became interested in the Shakespeare controversy. One day, browsing through his facsimile copy of the first folio of 1623, he noted that the word bacon appeared on page 53 of the histories and also on page 53 of the comedies. He also noted that Sir Francis Bacon had written extensively on the subject of cryptography. Donnelly began counting line and page numbers, adding and subtracting letters, drawing lines over sentences, circling words, and crossing them out. The result was a complex and virtually incomprehensible algorithm, which he claimed was invented by Bacon to hide secret messages inside the first folio.
Ovaltine.
The greatest Easter egg hunt in the history of Western civilization.
Nope. Gravity Falls has a beat. Gravity
Here are
Falls
just
is better.
a couple of the sillier highlights. A doctor named Orville Owen of Detroit constructed a bizarre research tool he called the Wheel of Fortune. This wheel consisted of two giant wooden
Wheel of
spools
Fortune was honestly
wrapped
one of the
with a
most
strip
disappointing
canvas
stands in
2
Part
feet
3, I
wide
gotta say.
and 1,000
Was it just
feet
Fortune?
long.
I don't remember.
Onto this
There was the
canvas,
car.
he
I
glued
never loved that
separate
episode.
pages
It's very
of the
silly.
complete works
It
of
is
Bacon,
kind of a
Shakespeare,
parody
Marlowe,
of Duel,
Greene,
the Spielberg
Peele,
movie,
and Spencer,
which is fun,
together
but
with
has its own
Burton's
episode.
Anatomy of
It's just pretty
Melancholy.
silly.
By cranking the spools back and forth, Dr. Owen could quickly zip across the pages in search of clues
This
and
game
cross-references.
needs
Employing a large
an
team
editor.
of secretaries
I was really
and
hoping
stenographers,
solving the
Owen
challenge
claimed to have
would give me
uncovered
this
a
big
complete
triumphant
alternative
moment
history of Elizabethan England,
when I played it on the
as well
theater.
as several
I did not.
entirely new Shakespeare plays and
This
sonnets.
does not feel as rewarding.
Listen to this hidden verse, supposedly
hoped.
penned by the mighty bard himself, which inspired Dr. Owen to build his Wheel of Fortune.